Good morning, you're listening to Euro Game Day Breakfast on talkSPORT. Ade Oladipo alongside former Marseille striker Tony Cascarino. And we're delighted to say talkSPORT's very own Max Scott is with us as well to go through the back pages. Max, what have you got for us?
Good morning, guys. Well, look, this week England have heavily been linked to. There's such strong talks about playing a back five, right? And in The Guardian, Karen Carney's essentially writing about this, saying that England can answer the wake-up calls by maintaining width in the hunt for the semi-final. It's a really interesting piece, sort of tactically, but she closes by saying England have had enough wake-up calls throughout this tournament. They have the quality to impose themselves and cannot afford to keep trying the same thing when they're not working. And so she's really welcoming this idea of playing Saka as a wing-back on the left and then having Trippier or Trent on the right, okay? And she talks about there are three ways of playing football: through, over and around. We've tried to go through, right? But the reality is it's been so obvious that teams have found it incredibly easy to just play tight in a low block and prevent England from getting through. She's sort of suggesting Harry Kane hasn't necessarily got the pace to go over.
Yeah.
And so it's absolutely important that they go around. And so really, my first question is, what do you make of these changes? Do you think that it's going to work having Saka, as a wing-back, or do you think maybe Gordon would be more suited to that? What do you think of these team sheets that we're seeing flying around that we think England are going to play with?
I think Gareth is absolutely, and rightly so, really concerned of how they performed and probably thinks we won't get through. If we're close to what we were in the previous games, we're not going to get through. And he's looked at the Swiss and he's probably thought, I'll match up with them in the positions like play three at the back and try and find solutions. The big thing for me is that they do this really well, and England, it feels like a little bit of a trial.
Yeah.
But he's got to do something because England cannot play like they have. I think he's surprised. I think he's really been surprised by how poor they've been.
Would he have changed formation? And before I give you my point of view on Saka playing as a left wing back, even though we haven't seen that for years apart from the other day, would he have changed formation if Guéhi hadn't been injured? So is this all down to Guéhi? Would he have stuck with
maybe
his 4-3-3 if Guéhi was still fit?
I would imagine there'd have been a lot of talks after the Slovakia game because let's remember, it was 1 minute from being out of the tournament.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably just sat and thought really long and hard of changing and how to get more out of the team because England weren't just poor, they didn't create anything of any note.
Well, that was our first chance, Jude Bellingham's goal, first shot on target.
So there's another issue. It's not just not playing well, it's you've actually created nothing.
Yeah.
And so off the back of the fact that we think it's very likely he's going to play with a back five, having had some really disappointing damp performances, is a tactical change enough? And if it doesn't work, does it suggest that the issues in the England national team run a lot deeper? Because, this is a big overhaul from what Gareth clearly wanted to achieve with the squad if he does change it this way. Do you think it's going to be enough? Or do you think these problems run deeper? I guess we'll see after 90 minutes or 120 tonight.
What do you think the papers will be like if England get beaten over the next few days? They will be brutally criticised because they haven't put in any performance that convinced in any shape or form. So there's a lot on the line here. That doesn't mean England can't get a result. I think they need a performance and a result because what we've seen, even if they play marginally better, anyone who sees them going up against the Spanish, whoever they may play,
the Spanish to win, wouldn't you?
You'd think they look way more organised than England. So it feels like Gaff has spin plates to get to this point.
Yeah. He is spinning. I mean, Saka as left wing back. I mean, I know Saka played there for a few minutes against Slovakia, but he hasn't played that position for Arsenal for 5 seasons.
Yeah.
And here we go. And look, Trent, it's a shoo-in for me that Trent plays right wing back. So all this talk of Trippier is just giving me a bit of a headache, if I'm honest with you. Like, Trent surely plays right wing back, but he trusts these soldiers, doesn't he? He really does stick to people he likes, and he likes Trippier. He really likes him.
And if he, it would not surprise me if he went with Trippier, because despite the fact this might be seen as Southgate sort of letting loose a little bit,
it's a bit more defensively in it on that side.
He still keeps his more defensive man.
I'll go back to Croatia 2018. Kyle Walker played right at the 3. I thought he found that very difficult. He likes to be a fullback or wing back where he knows who he's up against. He gets a little bit lost.
Yeah, who deals with that problem?
Who to pick up when people
it?
appear, making runs. I think Walker's found that tricky. When he's up, he's a fullback position, and he knows what's in front of him. He knows he's got Kylian Mbappe there. He thinks he's my man. I can mark him. I can, I think he's comfortable there. I'm not so sure when he's a little bit uncertain as the position he plays is in a 3.
Right, what else you got, Max?
Well, I'm just going to talk about Jude Bellingham. Just looking at the time here. Obviously, we're aware of what, Jude Bellingham's suspended ban, the fine that he's received. Charlie White in The Sun writes, 3 lions on the shirt, heart on his sleeve. Gareth tells Jude to keep playing with emotion. Now, this is actually a really interesting read. Gareth Southgate's urged Jude Bellingham to keep playing with emotion despite England's boy wonder getting a disciplinary. But he goes on, and Southgate's comments are quite interesting. I think many England fans would agree with the first element of it. Without this emotion, he says, I don't think that Jude is the type of player that he is. But then when going on to talk about the punishment, this is what I want to ask you two really what you think. Gareth Southgate says it's a common sense decision by UEFA. Clearly it's an unprecedented moment in his career, but he's essentially sort of agreeing with the punishment. And really I just think it's an interesting conversation about, do you think that it is the right decision to fine him, or do you think that players are maybe being micromanaged, and when you score such an iconic goal that it is people should be allowed to celebrate even though it was quite a lewd gesture? What do you think?
I've seen worse celebrations, I'll tell you that now.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a bit soft for me. Modern world we're in, you want to be punished for a lot.
So are you surprised that Southgate's saying that it's a good?
Well, it's not really a punishment because it's suspended, isn't it?
It's 1 year suspended. It's basically it's just like a 1 year suspended sentence. So he can take that 1 match ban whenever he wants, it seems, in the year. And the fine doesn't do anything to him.
I'd have taken that when I was a player.
Yeah, and what does that fine do to a multi-millionaire footballer as well? It means absolutely nothing. By the way, I don't mind Jude's sort of, if you like, angry side.
No.
It's not Rooney or Ian Wright-esque, but there is something there, right, that I like. And I feel like if you take that from him, you take a lot of his game away as well.
Yeah, well, anger and then there's frustration. The frustration was what I saw that would disappoint me more because he clearly was not happy while he was playing in the game. When he took up the left side a little bit more often in I think it was the second game. Anyway, when he did it, and I remember thinking, he's going to get himself booked here and he's going to get himself in trouble. And that's different from anger. Yeah. When the anger can take you, but you can still keep your head to some degree.
Yeah.
But the frustration, you end up winding yourself into an absolute frenzy and then do something really daft.
Go on, Max, we can squeeze one more in. Go on.
So the nenext one is essentially Harry Kane sort of saying that he's promised the pain of 3 near misses to lead England will sort of inspire England to glory this time round. Kane says we've come close and you move on from those emotions, but those emotions still exist. And so Harry Kane really trying to sort of step up to the mantle in terms of his leadership. All of the psychology around this is interesting. How do you respond to massive setbacks, his penalty miss against France, etc. And I just find it fascinating that these comments are coming out off the back of really disappointing Euros so far, right?
I just wonder with Harry Kane, and this is not a dig at him. Obviously, look, he's won nothing in his playing career. And no, it was slightly dig then, wasn't it?
But it's true.
But I just wonder, that winning mentality to go and win a big trophy. You look at other sort of captains and leaders of national sides who've won other stuff, so they understand what it takes to get over that hurdle, that big hurdle that Harry Kane's having to go over. And I just wonder, if you haven't won anything in your career, do you know what it takes to kind of get over that big slump in a major tournament? If you've not even won a League Cup trophy, a small trophy, he's won nothing.
Community Shield.
Nothing, anything.
I've always been surprised that I think he could have been more outspoken, a bit more demanding of his teammates, and he feels like he toes the line to great pro, which is honourable. But I think there's a part of him that is in such a powerful position. I think he could easily lead way more than what he says the right things, he does it, and he's a great pro. I admire him for all of that. But I think he could drive this team on. Do
you think he's the leader in the dressing room? Do you think he's
I'd
the
like
one that
to think
gives that
so.
final speech?
It might be that sort of one that just keeps himself to a degree, but when needs to, voices his opinion. But generally, he just seems a fantastic pro that hasn't won anything.
There's no doubt he's a great...
I feel bad saying it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But he's the best player I've ever seen that's not won anything.
Yeah.
There's no doubt he's a great character, clearly sort of represents England incredibly well, consummate professional. And I hope that his career lasts and he maintains, he's at the top of his game for as long as possible. But I am interested, just off the back of what you said, who's that player in the dressing room you think that can give that rousing speech? Yeah. Who do you think will be the next England captain? Not necessarily who you think Gareth would choose, but who do you think is that player at the minute that, in 2-3 years' time could be the next captain and really drag England up in a dressing room?
It's Declan
Rice. And I used to think Jordan Henderson used to be that voice in the dressing room. And I don't think, obviously Harry Kane was captain, but I don't think Harry Kane was the person speaking. I think it was Jordan. I now look at maybe Carl Walker as the person that screams and shouts in the dressing room, or maybe a John Stones. I just don't look at Harry Kane as that guy, but he leads by example on the pitch.
Yeah.
Was ist das? talkSPORT?